Hello people, and welcome back to part 50 of Palaven, our vanilla Cities Skylines build. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. And as today is episode 50, that means it's time for a city recap. We're going to fly back over episodes 41 to 49 and see how the city has changed now that public transport is active and in motion, buildings have leveled up, and the city has just kind of settled in with all the new builds. A lot of downtown stuff to cover today, also the port over there as well. Yeah. Also, thank you for all the support on Sunday's live stream. Insane. You guys really blew me away with all that support on Sunday. Thank you so much. We came through and worked on a little Hillside suburb detailing, which we'll cover today as well, of course. But otherwise, we'll dive into episode 41, where we worked on the downtown university. So this is kind of the city university aspect, right? We worked on a nice little entrance here. I continued to integrate lots of public transport into our university builds like we did with the University of Technology over by Palaven. And lots of car park space in here as well, kind of focused the two main buildings, the School of Medicine, is it? And School of Science over here. There's kind of lots going on. It's a nice little area of town. Metro flowing through here too. Underground metro is active now. Cycle networks flowing through, there's trolley buses through here as well, which are actually surprisingly getting a really nice amount of use now, these trolley buses. They flow up onto the Hillside suburb too. So it's nice to see those getting some use. Lots of kind of park detailing through here. Wanted a very kind of open, airy vibe to this campus. And it kind of sits in nice with that nighttime skyline now, doesn't it? And we're not far away actually from the next university build when we'll be working on the liberal arts stuff. We also introduced some repeated Art Deco spice from the Art Deco Content Creator Pack here, using the repeated buildings to kind of generate that vibe. It's almost like little student housings, little housing developments for people at the university to make use of. And of course, some classic Palaven green belt that's going to help border up between this area. We do have some empty space here still. Not quite sure what we're going to put in this. We'll probably save this for a little live stream build. If you guys want to throw some suggestions into what we can have sandwiched between some housing and a university, throw it in the comments and we can see what we can do. Yeah, just a nice small detailing. Works a public library in here as well, which I think works nicely with the university assets. And also came through some smaller internal fence and overgrowth spice within the campus itself. And then we kind of focus the commencement office between the student accommodation. Which ones are these called? Student dormitory, that's the one. You can see all these ghosts that are just about to graduate, which is great news for them. Very good. But it fits in really nice with the area. There's still a touch more work to be done around here, so you've got some kind of open, dead spaces that aren't really functional at the minute. We also introduced some slight office park vibes, all focused around those car parks again, and using office assets that kind of fit in with the campus. You kind of see, you know, they have that kind of similar palette with the brick. And then some more classic green belt. And the university also has its own little ring road entry and exit point, which has been decorated really nicely. Did this off camera. And yeah, nice little fences and overgrowth, repeated tree patterns, all kind of Palaven's favourite. How about the hot air balloons now as well? Really nice addition to the skyline. I can't believe we've waited so long to get them in. But yeah, nice little university build. Super expensive. This episode cost a fortune, absolutely bankrupted Palaven for a good few episodes. But I think we are on our road to recovery now. Yeah, we'll head over to episode 42, where we worked on the commercial town centre. So we focused everything here around a bunch of key unique buildings. We used the expo centre, the broadcast building, and the Mall of Moderation. So just kind of like a little expo and recreational town centre. And this town has connections straight off of the highway. You can kind of see if everyone's flowing around here. Really nice traffic flow in this part of town. We came through with some repeated high density green cities stuff, almost as like a little apartment housing development for the town centre, all focused around some 3x3 car parks in the middle, or 3x2 car parks rather. And we've also got some service assets in here, little clinic on the corner which makes a great corner asset. Likewise with the post office as well, right here. And then also we expanded out the childcare centre with a little bouncy castle. And then also brought the monorail line through here as well. I think now it's all coming together. Lots of pathways of course. There's also an intercity bus terminal here as well. Which is right by the highway, so these guys are coming straight in. And then heading straight back out, you can see one right here. In through the nice little green belt pattern, running some repeated trees on a path through the middle, which hooks into a trolleybus stop, which is the one that feeds out of the university. And we also ran some more repeated car park spice around the base of the expo centre. Again, lots of public transport in this area. There's monorail running through, of course the intercity buses. There's a metro line right here as well, which is of course hooked into the citywide cycle network, which now flows over here. And this gets a ton of use now. This one right here heads into the inner downtown, and then there's a link into the cycle network which flows out over the river and into kind of the riverside cycle network over here. So really cute build, nice little town centre design, some nice little office assets in here as well. This is a really nice looking corner building, this one. I'm really happy with this. There's some more green belt stuff expanded around another office park, again just smaller office assets and within their own little kind of micro road network here. And I think again it was all kind of contributing to that grander scale climb in height that we're looking to generate up to that primary skyline over there. And I think it pulled off quite nicely. I think it's okay. And these arterials are all nice and clear, feeding people straight from the highway over on this side, kind of straight into the downtown. And multiple kind of entries and exit points into different road networks down this road. I enjoyed this build, nice little commercial town centre, and it was a good kind of build to use up some of the chunkier assets as we began to transition into the outer line suburb, which was the subsequent episode. And I think we can kind of get a little zoom out here and see that grander scale kind of come down in height, right, as we move away from the main city centre. I think I'm happy with it. It's a nice little build, this one. Anyway, in episode 43, we went ahead and started work on the outlying suburb, which just sits adjacent to the commercial town centre, which we can see our expo centre over here. And we went back to Pittsburgh for this inspiration, had a look at kind of what's happening as we look from this, I guess we're east here, right? This is facing east, the sunrise is over here. Yeah, so we headed east and just kind of had a look as to what looks to this skyline, and it was just kind of a sprawling suburb. So Google Maps was a huge inspiration for this. Came through some service asset spice and lots of oil industry fence and pathways and overgrowth just to help give a little more importance to the service assets around here, like the police and the fire. The cycle highway does join up with the monorail at this point. These guys do run parallel down into the airport a little further down that way. And this gets a ton of use now. So this is hooked into the airport, there's people heading down into the city, and then people taking a little right turn, which again takes them into that wider, I guess, kind of ring road cycle network out by the river here, right? So lots of use. We also worked on a really nice little school park here. This is over by the metro and the monorail, that's on the town centre. So many people using the public transport, amazing, nice. Yeah. So we came through with a high school, a gymnasium, a couple of little tennis court assets just to help expand the high school out, so it's kind of like its own little park in itself. Again, more classic Palaven detailing as we move around this thing. And again, there's more suburbia. We did come in with some back garden spice over in these little suburbs, tried out some smaller designs. It's, it's a little bit rudimentary, a little bit kind of Stone Age, a little bit Jurassic Park. It's just a bit old, and the idea was there. It's not totally fleshed out the way we would like. But yeah, you know, we all wanted them facing out to that skyline. Looking out for that Pittsburgh inspiration again. And some more kind of general suburbia, nothing too crazy. There is another entry point onto the cycle highway here as well. And this arterial feeds down into the airport. And we've got a nice big arterial 6-lane flowing through the middle of this suburbia too. Some more road against road action here with some parks and pathways and fences kind of cutting behind the houses. More nice corner assets over here as well. We did do some lovely little detailing over here using these smaller little residential assets to help border up against the highway here. You got some nice little highway bordering over on this side. Again, lots of fence and pathways just to help fill out those dead areas. And I think now, you know, you can see people making use of them, and just how the fencing kind of sits up against the houses really does make a difference, filling out that green space with these small little detailing projects. Some people picking up this path here now as well, which is nice. And again, yeah, you know, all maintaining that view to the skyline. Really nice, super happy with this. And then we did introduce a little bit of high density. This isn't supposed to be here. Ignore the crematorium. yeah, introduce some smaller high density assets here. Just as we started to move towards the airport, you know, it's a little denser, a little more tightly packed in. So some high density residential made sense here as well. And then we also made a little more fuss out of a school and the monorail station. Obviously we can't place residences too close to the monorail because they're super loud. So I made a little bit of a design with some fences, some schools, touch of commercial and some park assets just to help border away that sound from the houses. And of course everyone's linked in with pathways from either side, which get a nice little bit of use, people jumping on and off the monorail here. Kind of see how much use this one's getting. I know you guys were quite keen to see the public transport in action for this city recap, so we'll try and get some nice shots of it. So you can see the important thing here is everyone's getting off and no one's driving. They're all walking either to their destination or they're going to go ahead and grab another method of public transport. There is buses flowing around here. I think there's a bus stop on here, isn't there? Yeah, there's one right here. So you know, it's all kind of integrated, public transport right by each other. You can just kind of see here, you know, people getting on off the bus, cycle network. Yeah, nice to see. Everyone's flowing wonderfully. So yeah, that was kind of episode 43, where we worked on the outlying suburb. And episode 44, we did the IT Cluster Park. I really, really enjoyed this episode, and there's lots of spicy public transport around here as well. So we'll quickly dive in to the metro view here so you guys can see. So there's two metro stations here. One feeds off into the Hillside suburb and the university, that stop that we saw earlier. And then one is a ring metro junction on the internal line alongside the ring overground metro. And this is a really busy public transport hub. Well, once we see a tram come down here, we'll kind of see how it's kind of performing. So again, lots of people on the public transport you can see. Maybe that one person drives, but the vast majority of them all switching between the different methods. I kind of champion converging different methods of public transport as often as you can, because it just makes it so much more efficient when people can hop from one method to the next. And this is a great example of it, this little public transport hub. So we came through some zoo fencing and some bush designs. This is classic Imperator Spice. And then came through with a little roundabout for our trams to turn around, which is blended in with some more green belt stuff. And nice layers of transport height as well here with the monorail and the cycle highway flowing by. In terms of the actual IT Cluster Park itself, so these things right here, these look like whole assets, right? But they're actually 4. These are, I think, 4x3 or 1x4. Yeah, so this is a really nice example of how repeated pattern spice can add so much more to your city, right? It essentially gives you like a whole new asset when you combine these things together. Likewise with these ones as well. These are all separate assets. You can kind of see how it highlights over each one individually. But when we place them next to each other, we're going to generate a really nice, dense downtown atmosphere, which is what we wanted to do. And again, some more kind of road against road action here with some classic Palaven green belt to merge between the highway. Yeah, we kind of had a bit of an awkward space here, and we didn't really know what to do with it. Kind of this block here was empty. But I think the IT Cluster Park worked out quite nicely. Also brought in some modern city centre content creator buildings here too. And this Park Life Cheese gets a ton of use with people crossing back and forth. Which is always nice. The vast majority of them making use of this public transport right here. Nice repeatable designs. Lots of the IT cluster assets with a green belt kind of integrated in between them. Which I think really helps. Just having that green belt, there's no other way to describe it, is there? Having the green belt just around these more modern looking assets really works nicely, I think. And as we kind of head over to kind of the main skyline over here, right, we can just see that nice gradual descent in height as we come into the transport hub, and Green Cities District is over here, IT Cluster Park as well. I think everyone's happy with it. Really nice. Really enjoyed it. Some more of the modern content creator buildings here as well. We do want to carry this pattern on. Want to maybe bring it along here. See, there's still got a little bit of dead space that we want to fill out. This is definitely a live stream job. Just to come through and pat these areas out like we have over here. Did some stuff against the Ring Road Junction at this point, and then also brought in Little B Park, which sits up against the Ring Road and the river now as well. Now it's all about filling out that dead space to give you that much more authentic feel, at least in my opinion anyway. I really do like this part of town. Yeah, this was a fairly small build, not too much going on, and you can see kind of this is where the many cycle highways of Palaven converge. There's one that flows off down this way, and then there's people arriving from the airport, which is obviously over there, and then people grabbing a connection over here. So a nice little kind of cycle interchange that takes people into different parts of town. And yeah, nice little build, the IT Cluster Park. I enjoyed it, you guys seem to as well. But in episode 45, we went ahead and started work on... Actually, before episode 45, we had a live stream. We came through and worked on this, which needs fixing, which I will do, I promise, one day, at least before the series finishes anyway, right? So we worked on detailing the riverbank, and this was the return of the live streams. We came through and did a bunch of work over here. So this is a spaghetti interchange that feeds into Dawson Waterfront, right? And we've got Dawson Waterfront over here. So the cycle highway now picks up from here, and we come over the river. Kind of tell you what, let's take a little tour, shall we? Why we have a little talk? Let's follow Leighton Cook as he goes about his day. So yeah, we came through, expanded the cycle highway. Again, it needs tidying up. It's a little bit roller coastery for only a little bit though. I think it's okay down here. So these guys follow the highway, and then we came through and worked on a highway rest stop during the live stream. But we had a whole bunch of dead space between the river and the highway, right? So it was like, what can we do to fill out this space? So a natural expansion of the cycle highway and the metro network kind of was the ideal solution. And we came through the really nice repeated pattern. So we've got sugar maples and then conifers and then Palaven pines, and they kind of repeat in an alternating pattern, as you can see. Oh, Leighton's going into Canalavan. No, come this way. Well, actually, yeah, we did kind of finish off Canalavan with some little fire shelter spice. Some nice little fence up against the water. And little kind of rock garden designs here. Nothing too outstanding. All kind of a general Palaven palettes that we're all used to. It's nice to see the ferries flowing through Canalavan here now as well. Yeah, so this is the highway rest stop. We use the actual service station asset from the Japanese content curator pack here. And there is an intercity bus station on this side of the highway, so people can arrive at Canalavan via this point, at Palaven rather. So I have Canalavan on the brain. We also used some of the leisure assets, the little Starlight Hotel, some of the outdoor gyms and a pool, just to kind of help create like a little bit of a highway motel vibe. Definitely a fledgling design. You can do a lot more with these assets, but you know, it's all about testing and finding out what works, right? And then there's a little pathway that crosses over into some very harsh vibes where we need to sort this out again. There's also a train station here which is just accepting intercity trains. This isn't hooked into anywhere else. And then we also have a connection into the back of the train station with the cycle network. And this is really nice layers of transport height, right? Pure transport lasagna here. 2 layers of cycle highway, metro and train in the background. Comes together really nicely with those windmills in the back as well. Yeah, it just follows on. It's all kind of snapped into the key guideline. It's all very symmetrical and uniform. Really nice. And then during last Sunday's live stream, we came through and introduced a little bit of a river. This is Frank Falls, in memory of Frank and his insanely generous donations during that live stream. And yeah, just kind of brought it in very much like we did with Bowes Creek over by Dawson. You can kind of see here, right? We've got 2 rivers coming out of the mountain. These are just fresh water outlets buried in the ground, and just create some little artificial streams and creeks and rivers, whatever name you want to give them. And we'll start to do the same with this mountainside over here as well. Just adds a little more interest into the landscape, I think. And then this, of course, hooks into the university. And then in episode 45, we worked on the long-awaited airport build. This was a long time coming. Very much like the downtown road network at the start of the series. Everyone was pleading for the downtown, everyone pleaded for the airports as well. And I'm really happy with this. We used 3 different airport assets, the Metropolitan Airport, the regular airport and the cargo one, and formulated their relative runways around each other so we could form that larger airport runway vibe. We did something similar in Bogusia, but not quite this big or detailed. And there's an absolute ton of public transport that converges in here. So there's 2 metro lines under the airport, of course. Both feed in different directions. Of course, people arriving via the planes as well, and there is 2 separate monorail lines that arrive here. So this is the monorail that feeds out of the university. This arrives here now, and this is the one that comes past the IT cluster park and the outlying suburb. This is where it all converges. And you can see just absolutely tons of people using them here. We'll kind of leave the game on 3 speed as people come and go out of this area. There's also an intercity bus stop here as well that feeds in some buses. We do need to hook some more bus lines into this, which we probably will do now. Maybe send one over to the Hillside suburb as well. Lots of repeated car park designs. I think this is kind of a staple of an airport, right? I think for everyone that's actually been to an airport, there's car parks everywhere. We'll also use the archway here, the business park. We did originally have this orientated within this space here. However, it was kind of blocking the flight path a little bit, almost like the planes were flying through it. But this is much nicer. We moved it onto the river and it frames the Grand Library really nicely now. And I can even get the moon in there as well. Very nice. Asset works wonderfully well with the airport. Super happy with it. And then of course over by the cargo airport we still need to come through and do some more detail in here, bring some more industrial vibes. There's a couple little highway connections here alongside the post sorting facility. And then we did build in a little kind of over the top grander trumpet interchange to help fill out this wooded area. Which flows really nicely. And then there's also, I guess you can't, this is super unsymmetrical, this is actually gross. This shouldn't be part of the city recap. I don't like this interchange. But whatever it is, I guess you could count it. It's kind of a dumbbell, right? Not like a proper dumbbell, but it's functional for right now. Now again, more layers of transport spice with the monorail coming over here as well. And we brought in some nice fence designs up against the highway, so as people are kind of arriving in Palaven via the road, they're coming right by the airport, right? Which I think is a nice vibe. Everyone's going to get on board with that. And then this highway just hooks into the river, which of course we've expanded out to hook into this highway over here. So you just kind of get an idea of how the highway flows around here now. And into a wonderful little kind of beautiful transport lasagna. We have trains, multiple layers of highway and cycle highway as well. Everyone kind of flowing around in this direction. Nicely decorated. Some underground designs here as well, which hooks people into this road. Which takes them down into the hood towards the aviation club. And yeah, lots of nice transport height as well here with the trains and the bridges. All packed into each other, and the cycle highways here as well. You know, lots of people using this as an option to get back into from the airport. And it will eventually feed into this side of the map, whatever we end up putting here. We can see we're just kind of preparing for some things to start lying here. We've got a little bit of space to use up with the map boundary. Not a huge build over here, but there definitely will be something. A little train heading out of Palaven as well. Very nice. Also came through with some just really basic part designs up against the monorail stations here. You might think, why is there so many monorail stations? There's 2 outside the Metropolitan just for the symmetry. And then we've got 1 over here as well for the airport. So you can see we've got a plane arriving right now. And none of them are driving. Everyone is taking the monorail. Or they're choosing to head out onto the path. And then, well, maybe a couple of people driving, but you know, these things produce so much traffic, they have to be hooked into public transport. See, basically everyone that arrives via the Metropolitan, they take the metro. Very few people actually come out of this. So hopefully we're going to get a... Looks like there's going to be a plane arriving now. Some people coming out. A couple of them driving, but everyone just wants to get on the metro inside the airport. And then they head out in various directions. Brought through some repeated Art Deco buildings again as well. I kind of wanted to treat this almost like a little city art project with the multicolored housing over by the airport. And I think it turned out quite nicely. I do like this very heavily repeated pattern, of course. But I think it's alright. I think it's nice. I am a fan. Probably do with maybe a little more interesting shape than just a straight rectangle like this, but I think you get on board with the idea, right? This arterial 6 lane as well that flows through the outlying suburb kind of comes to a conclusion here as it elevates into a nice little bridge which gives us some more layers of height as well, of course. This is the start of the cycle highway, well, one of the starts of it anyway. And this is the elevated cycle path that feeds into the outlying suburb. And then we of course brought in some little IT cluster offices just as little pops of height for our airport. And we did work on a little PAX flower design for the entrance to the roundabout, which I think came across. It's also called Prepared to Exams International as well. Yeah, so we've got a little PAX sign out on the roundabout here, but I really enjoyed the airport build, and I think it was worth the wait. You guys seem to enjoy it anyway. But yeah, a nice little way to round out this corner of the map, I think, and it fits in quite nicely with the rest of Palaven, I think. I hope, anyway. Anyway, in part 46, we worked on the modern nuclear power and research centre. So we came over here with, of course, a couple of nuclear power plants, which this will pretty much power Palaven for the rest of its life cycle now. Two of these things will produce a ton of power. We came through, this is over by the start of the city, by the way. This is the start of Palaven. This is the starting interchange and the first few roads we ever drew in. Oh, look at the addition of hot air balloons now. I can't believe we waited so long to get the hot air balloons in. I know I mentioned it at the start, but I've forgotten and just seen them again. So we came through with some power stations, a couple of little water outlets here as well. We drew down the industry area from the ore area and brought in some of these little storage things, which again have that kind of nuclear reactor dome vibe about them. I'm obviously not a nuclear engineer, so I'm not sure the exact technical term. But again, this is more classic Imperator Spice. He did a video kind of on ways you can use assets away from their intended purpose, this being one of them. Great little idea. If you haven't checked out Imperator, go and check out his channel. He's got some really nice unmodded ideas. Fed a little one-way system through, which just keeps everyone moving around this area. Of course, some little industrial bridges over the water really help add to the build. There's another ore storage build over here as well, and a tunnel which goes under the railway. We did elevate this railway, very much in the vein like we did over by Dawson, right here. Kind of see, right, you know, we elevated the railway up just so it gives it that. It's more layers of height, isn't it? There's no other way to dress it up. It's more layers of height, and it works really nicely. It really helps border off between two areas, and it gives the railway a little more importance rather than just having it on the ground. You can bring, you know, bridges over and feed roads under them. I really like doing this with the railways. Really cute idea. You can do it with trams as well. It doesn't have to just be railways. You can elevate a number of different things, really. It's really up to you. Used a lot of the modern content creator buildings here. I like the Fab Semiconductor Plant, the Nanotechnology Research Centre, or the Research Centre, and the Robotics Institute. Lots of repeated car park spice around here as well. I did want quite an open, airy, parky vibe to this particular build. And we've also got a ferry stop over here as well, which isn't hooked in at the minute. Once we start working on this side of the map down here, we'll start to feed our ferries down this river, and then down this one as well into the port. So still lots more work to be done in this part of town. We also brought in a warehouse and a cargo rail station and another post sorting facility. And everyone is feeding into a one-way loop here, which keeps everyone flowing, because obviously the post sorting facility and the cargo train station, these guys produced tons of traffic, so one-way systems and almost immediate highway access are pretty essential. I added in some toll booths here as well into Palaven, kind of cheesing people as they come into the city. And then also kind of a larger one here as a security gate into the nuclear power plant. And then we also added some water stuff here as well, which is starting to kill the trees, just some little water treatment vibes. And then we drew in a vanilla pathway and some oil fence to serve as like a perimeter, and we'll kind of see this thing as we come into, as the night starts coming in. You see how it kind of lights up now, really gives it that perimeter vibe. Obviously you can't just walk into a nuclear power station, they're very secure areas for obvious reasons. And then I think the windmills here had a nice little bit of highway decoration. Yeah, toll booths, windmills, perimeter fences, all these industrial looking assets all come together. And of course more classic Palaven detailing with rocks and trees and little pathways that come up here. This pathway is kind of pointless, there's no real reason for anyone to use this, but I think it's nice, the little kind of tiered effect as it comes up onto the different tier. Again, playing with our layers of height as we always try to do. But yeah, you guys really enjoyed this one. It was super cute, nice little use of the space, and a nice start to this side of the map as well. You see we've got plans to kind of move people out here and feed some of these arterials down and begin to expand Palaven in this direction where we've got a lot of space to work with. We've got some nice ideas for this as well, maybe like a little resort hotel over by the river. Lots of things to get involved with. In part 47, so in the next part we started work on a little project that I wanted to use some of the high density European residential assets to try and create kind of a converted warehouse vibe, because we're in a really industrial part of town here. Like the forestry is here, a lot of the garbage processing stuff and power plants are here as well. So I wanted to kind of make a residential build that tied in with that theme, and these assets, I think the idea was there. I think it's I think you've got to back these buildings onto each other to get a warehouse vibe. I think most of us agreed with it. The thought is there. It's the idea that counts, right? I brought through some really nice burgundy trams into these little tram parks that sit outside the residentials, which is really nice. You get a very strong Kensington vibe for those that have been to London. With this kind of spice sample right here, right, with the fencing, the repeated trees, and these very repeated residential buildings. And then we switched up to some kind of red brick vibes here. Again, trying to come from that angle of, like, you know, it's old converted warehouses that are now swanky, desirable residential. I'm sure most people have seen this kind of thing. There's a lot of it in the UK. Again, more open parkland, usual green belt stuff, nice repeated path and fence designs feeding either side of the arterial, which all accumulates into a little nightlife square. I don't like this. I think we will come back in a stream and refine this and maybe make some blocks of nightlife rather than having it all surrounding the meteorite park. The centre's quite nice, especially with people stopping behind here as well and grabbing the trams in different directions. It's nice to see the public transport getting use. And then this tram does feed back down to the start of the build where there's another toll booth, and we decorated up the entrance to the nuclear power plant here using some oil fence and some dirt and the industrial tunnels just to give it that little more of an importance, you know, like this is something specific that you're about to enter, like a nuclear power plant. Decorated the tram roundabout with some pathways, a little bit of trees, and put in a couple of tram stops here as well. Nice way to use up some roundabout space, I think. And having the little tram stop here and people getting on and off. It's not affecting the traffic, everyone's flowing wonderfully. And then the trams do come under the highway into a little tram turnaround point here, which does link into the little commercial tram centre that we built in episode 3, I think we built this. And you can just kind of see how many people are using this now. Now all that public transport converging again. And then these guys do feed off into the downtown. So again, you can literally get from like right here, okay? So you can start from here. You can get to the airport via public transport from here. You know, you would take a tram up until the town centre, and you can then grab the metro, which takes you all the way to the airport. So just more examples of public transport, or different methods of public transport converging with one another. Really just helps keep people flowing in the area, which is nice, but really small build, wasn't a huge episode this one. And then in part 48, we headed over and worked on the industrial steel harbour. So this is right over on the other side of the map from anywhere else in Palaven, right? Everything that we've worked on so far is over here. And this was our first venture into what will be the European side of the map. So we fed a highway through here via this awful interchange, which will be changed out for something quite impressive and spicy once we come over to this part of town. Which will be in the subsequent episodes, I think. I think we're going to start working on this area from next week. And then nice long straight highway run. We did have some really nice feedback, so there is a train line here as well. Let's switch over to daytime real quick here. We're going to move the rail line so it flows centrally with the highway, which I think will be quite nice. So a little bit of a job to do just to shift it over a couple of tiles, but it's no huge problem. And yeah, nice little industrial steel harbour with that sunset as well. Yes, please. It's super nice, isn't it? Really, really like that. So we had some really awkward terrain to work with here. So in the Murky Coast map, we have these like rapids here. The river turns into a waterfall as it comes down into the ocean. So if we would have built the port at this height, the quays would have been like absolutely enormous, like up to the top of these buildings. It would have looked ridiculous. So we had to do some terraforming. So we came through the level terrain, knocked everything down onto the level that we wanted it to. and then sunk the highway through a couple of tunnels, which actually look really nice. I'm quite happy with this. I think it works quite nicely. As we enter the port, the highway comes into a little elevated bridge, which again adds some nice layers of height for us to enjoy as people come down this way. And then it comes over here. Some very kind of basic generic zoned industry assets here, one of which is burnt down. Of course. What else? Lots of fence spice and some trees around here too to help fill those dead areas. Used a road maintenance depot and some car parks to try and generate something like a port entrance, you know, this way you drop your papers off. Very heavily repeated 4x4 zoned industrial for the cargo harbours. Oh, well, for the cargo containers rather. And then 3 very evenly spaced cargo harbours as kind of the main feature of the port, right? Worked out quite nicely. Worked on some office park designs, which isn't my greatest work in hindsight. We probably do with refining a couple of these assets a little bit more. Not overly happy with this. There's a water tower here as well, just outside of the pollution, which you guys were very concerned about, but it is just outside the pollution. And then we have some industrial service assets over here, like tank reservoirs, some water treatment. There's another hook into this little highway kind of slingshot road that feeds people back onto the other side, so it's just a little one-way entry point here. Lots of warehouses, more service assets, some more generic zoned industry, and then kind of the meat and potatoes of the build, right, is the industrial steel plant from the Industries DLC, which again is such a really tidy industrial asset and works really nicely with the rest of these port assets. Yeah, I really like the port. I'm usually bad at building ports as well. If you go back and look at Boguzia's, I'll tell you what, I'll throw it up on screen. I'll show Boguzia's port compared to this one. I think this is quite the improvement. But yeah, definitely getting better at building ports, I think. I guess we'll see what the Snow City port looks like in a couple of months' time, right? We are preparing to bring down some fishing designs over here, kind of in this lower section of the port. And then we'll also begin to terraform out this landmass, so we have those 2 tiers as we begin to work on the European city centre, which will sit on this landmass eventually. But yeah, really nice port build. You guys enjoyed it. Thank you for all the support on it. I was quite nervous about this one, but I think we got away with it. And then in part 49, we worked on the rich hillside suburb, which was quite the build. So we started this on an episode and then came through in last Sunday's live stream to finish it off. But really nice designs. We've got some cute little ideas happening here. There's lots going on. So we're over here. This is the downtown university where we started today's episode, and the commercial town centre is here. And then obviously this map has a hill or a mountain this side, so we wanted to build something here. And I thought kind of a rich hillside suburb would be ideal. So again, tons of public transport here. This is one of the monorail lines that feeds into the metro. Let me try that again. This is one of the monorail lines that feeds into the airport, and there's also a metro line here that feeds into the airport as well. And again, loads of people using it. Very few people driving as they get out of these things. There's another monorail stop down here as well, which is helping to serve a little bit of our highway decoration. And then we did integrate some high density residential in here. It's kind of taken away from the rich, lush vibe, but I did want to get some mixed zoning in. Probably needs a touch more refining. But I'll probably do this off camera now rather than spend another live stream over here. There's nothing overly special in the bottom part of this town. This is just kind of very general flowing suburbia with some nice green belt stuff that's going to border up against the highway. You've seen this all before. Nice farm fencing. And then we've got some more green belt designs over here with small commercial zonings and park life assets in here with some nice pathways and more of it over here. Very kind of general, boring, zoned residential, nothing overly special. But kind of the real meat and potatoes of the build lies in kind of the main street and the mountain mansions. So there's a separate road that runs up here that takes the trolley bus up. So this is the same trolley bus that flows out of the university. And we'll see if we can find one. Where are you, trolley buses? There we go. There's one right here. So these guys are going to head up the hill. And we replaced a lot of this zoning for Green Cities zoning, which I think has a little more of a a rich luxury vibe away from a lot of the regular commercial assets, apart from ones like these, the little Jubilee shops. But I think the Green Cities commercial has a much more of a rich vibe to it, I think, doesn't it? Certainly enjoying it. Then as it comes to climb, we start to shatter the zoning and introduce some fencing and some repeated palm patterns, which gives it that kind of LA vibe, which, you know, Palaven is taking no inspiration from California. But you can kind of appreciate a palm with a rich vibe, right? I think it definitely helps kind of accentuate that theme. Some really nice repeated Green Cities market spice here as well. There is some of the 1x3 assets. And then we arrive at the top of the hill where we've got a plaza, a couple of park life assets, a basketball court. The hot air balloon station is here as well, and a little community pool that sits and looks out with a colour tree number 2 repeated pattern. And I think this is Palaven's new money shot, isn't it? It's really, really nice. It's super, especially with the sun setting, but you know, we'll come to appreciate this in the cinematics, I'm sure. Let's have a look at these houses. So we came up with the idea that we wanted almost like these little private houses and started to formulate a couple of designs using some kind of paths and park life assets with individually zoned houses. There's a couple of these things dotted around across this mountain. There's one over here. Using some of the nightlife assets as well, like the pools and the terraces. And some more park life decals here, like the little tiles and benches and sand pits and slides and stuff. Just to expand a richer house around the residential asset. Very kind of Beverly Hills style here, right? Very rich people will live up on the mountain. There's a couple of different designs. There's kind of a smaller one over here. And then we did some more this side as well with some flower beds and gazebos. So it's all really, really cute. There's a nice one up here as well. Again, another one of those pools. Some nice fencing and more path decals and a little terrace for them to sit out and enjoy their millions. And we also came through here as well and worked on kind of like a vineyard slash plantation house, whatever you kind of want to call this build, right? It's this asset, it has that vibe about it, right? And I think we'll definitely kind of get like a larger modular build out of this this idea, using some zoned farm industry from the vanilla game, and then some little repeated dirt paths with trees in the middle and a nice little central pathway through. So we worked on a couple of these designs. You can kind of see them scattered across the mountain. There's a couple of different ones. And then we also used a nature reserve to kind of flesh out this hillside here. Kind of came down and brought in a little viewpoint, which again just kind of boasts that nice Palaven view, right? And then also over here as well with some cabins. We kind of came up with some repeated Centre Parks spice. For those that live in the UK, you probably know what a Centre Parks is. It's kind of like a woodland retreat, I guess you would call it. And there's lots of cabins in the woods. And again, we can definitely get a modular build out of this. This would be a really nice placed up against water. And kind of repeating this block of 6 or 4 or 8, you know, kind of multiply it as many times as you like. And then again, just further down the nature reserve, some really basic campsites and smaller decorating decals, a little boulder in sight. And some cave spice suggested by Spice Cat. But yeah, that was kind of Palaven's hillside suburb. And oh yeah, we also brought through the creek as well towards the end of last Sunday's live stream. Which will continue to be decorated as we work on this quite mountainous side of the map, because we've got a fair old chunk of space to fill here as well. So yeah, that was episode 49. You guys really enjoyed the live stream, and thank you for all the support on that live stream and the episode as well. Okay guys, that is going to do it for today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the recap today, a like below is always appreciated. Even much if you haven't enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a dislike as well. Thank you so much for all support on Palaven. It has been really nice building this city, and we are in kind of the second half of the city now, I think, but there is still a lot more to do. We have kind of the whole European city centre to work on. There's a couple of rural spice designs that we need to get involved with on opposite ends of the map, one near the nuclear plant and then one over by the airport. So there's still lots more to do. I imagine we'll probably hit about 70 to 80 episodes of Palaven. I guess we'll see. Not sure. I clearly don't plan these things. But either way, thank you for all the support on the channel. I really appreciate it. We are still growing like crazy, and Your guys' support is just endless and insane. I really, really do appreciate it. But otherwise, enjoy some nice little outro cinematics of the builds that we've taught today and kind of see Palaven in a new light with the LUT that we're playing with these days. General nice outro cinematic niceness that we all enjoy. But otherwise, I will shut up and I will leave it there. I want to thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.